Alright people, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Now, today we're going to be talking about Porto. Of course, last night they lost to Arsenal on penalties. Unfortunate, but I will say they were absolutely incredible over both legs. And they did kind of switch up their tactics from the first leg to the second leg. They were a bit more imposing, especially in that first half, trying to be a bit more direct, also trying to press the Arsenal backline, who were as well just incredible. But also last week Thursday, we went ahead and replicated and recreated Jose Mourinho's Porto side. So it did lead me to want to do the current side. And also, a little disclaimer, of course, I do know that for most of the season they have played a 4-4-2 formation. And only recently, I think in January, halfway through January, something like that, they switched to the 4-2-3-1 system. Now, if you would like to, I'm not going to actually go ahead and do it again, but go and check out the FIFA 23 4-4-2 formation. It works very well still. The only thing I would say is adapt those set of tactics with the current set of tactics in terms of the tactical vision and so on. So yes, that is more or less the only thing I'll say for that. But yes, let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. Okay, so taking a look at the formation. Now, for this formation, I've gone with a 4-2-3-1 narrow, and I've turned the left and the right attacking midfielders into the left and the right midfielders. That's the only changes I have made. So therefore, it will be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two DMs, one attacking midfielder, two wider midfielders, and then, of course, one striker. So, taking a look at the tactics. Now, the tactical vision that I've set is kick and rush. Quite often, especially in last night's game, Porto would look to build out from the back, yes, and then look to spray the ball forward, looking to try and bypass the Arsenal midfield as well as theirs, and look to go directly into the forward line. So the kick and rush approach is going to be very effective for the side, and we have seen them be very good with it, even in the Portuguese league itself. Whether it's playing against Benfica, winning 5-0, of course, or potentially playing against the likes of Arsenal last night. It's a very good, useful tactic that the likes of Porto tend to use more effectively in Europe. So, for the defensive style, I've set it to pressing or pressure on heavy touch, looking to keep their shape, keep their structure. They were very good at doing so last night specifically as well. But more so, it is ingrained into the entire side that the shape and the structure needs to be always intact in order for the team to not be beaten as a whole. So waiting for the opportunities, waiting for a loose touch, a misplaced pass, things like that, and looking to try and capitalize that with speed and pace and looking to try and counter. That is the number one aim of the counter-pressing system that they try and use. As for the team width, I have set it to 15, a nice, very compact structure. And I will say that it does vary, maybe between 15 and I would say 35, potentially, depending on what the game plan is and how heavy the opponent will try and press you and how the opponent will look to dominate the possession stats and whatnot. Against Arsenal, I would say go with 15 and very compact central units. But against like another team in Portugal, you could look to try and, flare it out a little bit, allow for, a bit more of a man-v-man type system, and be very effective with trying to win the ball back through the middle of the field. As for the depth, I have set it to 55. Now, again, this does vary. Against Arsenal last night, they started off with a line that I would deduce would be around a 50-55. And then as the game wore on and they were looking to try and, get it to penalties, they did, recede quite a bit. And I would say that probably was around, 30, 35, maybe even 25. So it's a very pragmatic system. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to get at. Where in some moments they can, push the team nice and high up the field, and in others they can also look to, retreat a bit, minimize the space in behind, and maybe not be exploited as much. Okay, so moving on to the offense. The build-up play I've set is long ball, as well as the chance creation is set to direct passing. Of course, they go hand in hand with the tactical vision, but most importantly, they do often have pacey runners up front, whether it's the likes of Evan Nielsen or, Gelano or Conceição, of course, the manager's son, breaking in behind, looking to use the space, as well as the fullbacks. They also tend to get nice high and wide, and occasionally will look to try and exploit the space in behind. But at the same time, with all this in hand, you can look to effectively build up from the back. And of course, the likes of the young man Otavio, as well as Pepe, or whoever you have in the back line, both are really good ball-playing centre-backs. In fact, most of Porto and what they do, it requires good on-the-ball centre-backs. The ability to play from back to front, that long ball in behind, looking to try and supply the forwards with those, potential chance creation opportunities in behind. That is what you're going to be looking for. But again, you can, look to build the ball up with those, short 5-yard passes, progressing it into the midfield, and then obviously looking to try and, exploits the opposition in that type of way or manner. It's not always going to be a just get it up and hoof it up the field and hopefully one of your forwards can get onto it. Of course, that's never going to be the case. But it is always a viable option for a side like Porto. As for the width, I have set it to 35. Now, this does compact the attackers quite a bit, which is what you're trying to get. You're trying to get that interchangeability. You're trying to get that free-flowing, fluid football up front, whether it's Evan Nielsen dropping deep, playing as the number 10, Pepe drifting out wide to the right-hand side, Conceição, sometimes coming inside and playing as a number 10. You want to have that. So I think a very compact width up front. It allows for the interchangeability. It allows for the quick, 5-yard passes and movements. And more or less, that's what you are trying to replicate and recreate. As for the players in the box, I have set it to 7. Now, more so against Benfica, they were quite happy to overload and overstack in that attacking area. But against Arsenal, whoops, my bad. Against Arsenal, they were also quite happy to not throw as many men forward. We did see the likes of Evan Nielsen, Gelano, and Conceição every now and then breaking into the box. So that's more or less 3 players. So 2 to 3 players in the box. But what I would say is for the more standard approach, go with 7. When they are feeling a bit more confident and they are looking to dominate the opposition, they do tend to overcommit quite a few players in that attacking area. Finally, as for the corners and the free kicks, as for always, I've set it to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the instructions, starting off with the likes of Diogo Costa. So for his saving on crosses, I've set him to balanced. Of course, he is very capable of, claiming those aerial balls, but every now and then, he chooses to have the centre-backs try and deal with the situation at hand. So I think a more balanced approach suits him, as well as saving outside of the box. He's not afraid to, make that marauding run outside his comfort zone, win the ball back and look to try and circulate it back into play. Of course, he is very good at playing under pressure. Arsenal, last night, 1 or 2 times, they caught him out with, a few of those passing out from the back movements. But I think he kind of passed the test, especially in that first leg. He was quite good. He wasn't really tested, but in terms of his ability to find the correct pass, start the offense from back to front, I think he is a very, very good goalkeeper. As for the likes of Cardoso as well as Pepe, both of them set their base set of instructions. You don't need to change too much with that. But as for the 2 fullbacks, both are set to the same instructions. Join the attack, overlap, and of course, stick to position. As you'll see for the likes of Wendell as well, same thing. Okay, so into your midfield double pivot. Both Estádio as well as Varela have the same roles and instructions. And of course, if you do sub out Varela for, another Nico Gonzalez, for example, another DM, no real changes will be made. You want them to remain central, pick up the runners on the edge of the box, and also try and guard that backline as best as possible. Of course, it's a very pragmatic defensive style of approach, but making sure that you can protect your goal and then look to go forward is always going to be the #1 priority for a team like Porto. So, for their roles going forward, tight mark is going to be a thing. Stay back while attacking as well, and of course, normal interceptions. Finally, you want their positioning freedom to be told to stick to position. You don't require them to, drop deep and get on the ball as much. It's more so the centre-backs that do tend to play out from the back very effectively, as well as you want them to try and guard the central areas as best as possible. And if need be, you can look to manually drag them out into those wider channels if required. As you'll see here for the likes of Varela as well, same roles, same instructions, same everything. Okay, so onto the likes of the attacking Pepe now, of course. So he will be told to come back on defense as well as having a balanced, crossing run. Sometimes breaking into the box, other times staying on the edge of the area and waiting to try and, facilitate a bit more. As for the positioning freedom, it is set to drift wide. You want him, because he is more naturally a winger, you want him to kind of, drift into those wider channels, link up very nicely with a Gelano or a Conceição, or just making sure that he is pulling the central defenders out of position more times than not. As for the likes of the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, allowing him to have that nice counter-pressing measure where it's trying to create a bad opportunity for the opposition. Okay, so onto the likes of Gelano. Now, he is set to come back on defense as well as having a free roam. We did see that against Arsenal, he was very much allowed to drift all over the place, picking up the little half spaces on the wing or potentially drifting inside and interchanging with the likes of Pepe. So, in order to do that, free roam is going to be essential, but most importantly, using his advantage and his speed to your team's advantage is going to be an absolute must. Of course, getting it behind is going to be a massive factor in trying to exploit the defense of the opposition and looking to try and penetrate their backline as much as possible, waiting for potentially those long balls in behind. Finally, you want him to have normal interceptions as well as a balanced approach for the crossing runs, allowing him to break into the box, yes, but other times staying on the edge of the area and waiting to try and create potentially for one of the more attacking players in and around the final third. Okay, so onto the likes of Conceição on the right-hand side. He is also set to come back on defense, but the major change that we do see for him is more naturally he tends to hug the touchline, stay wide, be a bit more of the guy who draws the opposition and tries to stretch them as much as possible, trying to supply the attacking outlets down the right-hand side, whipping in crosses and free kicks and not free kicks, sorry, cutbacks and all that good stuff, trying to supply the forwards with good, you know, goal scoring opportunities. Finally, you want him to also get in behind as well as normal interceptions and then of course balanced crossing runs. Okay, so onto the likes of Evan Nielsen. So I've set him to drift wide, be a false sign and aggressive interceptions, and of course come back on defense. Of course against Arsenal and even against Benfica, when he's the figure point of the offense, he does tend to drop off the back line, drift all over the field to be honest, as well as trying to get on the ball and drive at the opposition, which is essentially what all of these instructions tend to do. Of course, the aggressive interceptions is for that, you know, counter-pressing system of trying to force the turnovers or mistakes at the back. Of course, I think he can be very effective. I honestly am very impressed with him. I think he could be a very good Gabriel Jesus type player if he had to, you know, move to the Premier League. But yes, I was absolutely impressed with him last night. And there you have it, people. That is how I would, you know, replicate and recreate Conceição's Porto 4-2-3-1 system. I do apologize if I sound a bit different. My nose is absolutely killing me today with allergies. I do apologize sincerely. But out of 10, I would give this a very solid 7. I think on the more defensive aspect, I would rate it about a 6, and on the more offensive aspect, I'd rate it an 8. But in the middle, it would be a 7. So if you guys can let me know down below what you would rank and rate this system and tactics, that would be absolutely great. Comment as well on anything else. But yes, anyways, until the next time, smash the like button, and I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.